Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic figure to take a look at. Another Tyrannosaur Series release in 1/18th scale. We have the Proceratosaurus. This is another really cool species added to the Tyrannosaur series, which is absolutely loaded with incredible species, but I've always been a pretty big fan of the Proceratosaurus in general, so it was really cool to have a Beasts of the Mesozoic version coming out. You can see it's pretty much your standard as far as what you see with the Beasts of the Mesozoic. You've got the window area where you can see kind of a sneak peek of our figure, as well as really beautiful artwork over here of a Proceratosaurus carrying, I guess, its next meal. And then you can see again the Tyrannosaur series, as well as the species name here running down the side. Over here on the side of the box, you can see the Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series. And then over here, a little bit more of the window, again the species name. And then here on the back, you've got a nice checklist of all the figures that are included in the second wave of the Tyrannosaur series, which is where we are currently. You can see again, collect all of wave 2. A lot of these we've reviewed on the channel, a few of them we have not, but they will all be up here on the channel very soon. So let's pop the box open and check out our Proceratosaurus. So the first thing we have, of course, is the tail assembly instructions. You can see here, again, very important to read this so you've got a good idea as far as how to attach pretty much everything and anything when it comes to this particular release from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. Always very important to read this if you are unfamiliar with the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. On top of that, you've got the trading card, which the trading card is always awesome. You can see the same image that we had seen on the front, but just a better view of it now. And again, the Beasts of the Mesozoic. Of course, again, we saw it on the front of the box. I didn't state that, I just said on the front, but on the front of the box. But you can see, again, you've got a nice shot here of a little dinosaur toy photography on the back, and then some information on the species down here as well, which is very, very cool. As always, love the inclusion of these cards. On top of that, you've also got the base for your dinosaur, which looks really nice, and we've also got all of the connector pieces here for the base, the way you would assemble it, to put the dinosaur on the base, as well as alternate feet. And you can see, even though one foot is actually upside down, trying not to tilt this enough that they'll fall out, because I don't know how, yeah, you can see they're just kind of sitting in there. But you can see you've got kind of like a closed toe option as well as an open toe option there. Let's go ahead and see if we can just put that in a better way where maybe it won't fall out. But again, very nice to have the ability to alter the positioning of the toes, because I think articulation for the toes would have been a little complicated. And then, of course, our Proceratosaurus itself, and instantly you can see very striking looking, really quite the impressive looking paint scheme that we have for this one, because one thing you see often on these Beasts of the Mesozoic figures are super flashy paint schemes. This one, I feel like, has that nice flashiness to the face, but it doesn't have a coloration and a paint scheme that's too flashy. Like, when you look at this, I feel like you definitely see a very naturalistic appearance for the dinosaur, and overall looks really, really good. Definitely a very nice color choice for the species, and I think it works really well. They did a very good job of choosing the actual paint scheme for this one. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Proceratosaurus, you can see some really cool looking paintwork, of course, straight off the bat. You've got that really nice flashy appearance here with the yellowish tones, as well as a little bit of kind of like an orangish brown on the upper part of the crest. You can also see we've got a very dark variation that runs along the upper edge of the crest and sort of stripes down, as well as runs along the lower jaw and stripes up into the upper jaw, and that definitely gives it a very cool, very flashy appearance. You can also see the nostrils are outlined with that tone of color. You can see a little bit of blue right there in the mid area of the palate as well, which looks really cool. A little bit of blue back there by the eye on top of everything. The skin texture does look really nice for the face, as well as the crest. I think it looks very good. But as you move back here into the body a little bit further, you start to pick up on some very nice feathers, and I think that looks really, really good as well. Nice light tone, kind of like a variation of an off-white there as you lead back. You've also got a really nicely painted eye with a nice gloss coat to give it that nice realistic shine. Of course, articulation galore, as you always find straight away. We've got an articulated jaw. You can see a very nice purplish tone in there. The tongue is sculpted out, and you can see a nice gloss coat shining You can also see the teeth here on the lower jaw are painted. Same deal there for the teeth on the inside of the mouth on the upper jaw, even though my camera's not focusing perfectly on it, but you can see they're all kind of like sculpted and painted together. But considering how small that figure is, you can see again the head fits right there within my finger. It's definitely a pretty small head, so it's got some pretty small teeth. As you lead up here to the top of the head of our Proceratosaurus, you can see we do have a darker tone of color, a very dark brown running up here. They've dry brushed it out a little bit though to highlight the detail, which looks really nice. And again, the light tone as you move down closer to the side of the dinosaur leading into the underside. You can see the throat sculpted really nicely. Of course, as you move back, you begin to hit some articulated areas, as you've got one spot here and one spot here of articulation, which allows you to very nicely pose and articulate the head of your Proceratosaurus, which looks really good and works really good. You can only go down about that far, but I don't think that it takes away from the figure having a little bit of a limited amount of mobility in a downward position, because elsewhere you have, again, really smooth articulation, which is something that's pretty common for these smaller Tyrannosaur series figures. As you move down a little bit further, you can see again the feather detail looks really good as you move through the course of the figure. I like that you can kind of see some of that lighter variation of brown. You have like a lighter brown here. You can kind of see it creeping through some of the darker browns here on the upper part of the Proceratosaurus. As you continue to move along, you lead down into the arm. You've again got some more of that lighter variation of a brown, and then back to that sort of off-white. We've got a few more areas of articulation as you move down here, as you've got one here in the shoulder, as well as the elbow, and then of course the wrist, and all of them move very nicely, and you can usually swivel them as well. Yep, you definitely do the same as you move through, and the arms can come out away from the body a little bit, not super far, but definitely a little ways out. The fingers are sculpted pretty nicely. We have feathers running all the way out onto the fingers. You can see a nice glossy black has been used for the nails. They look really good, but you have a variation of kind of like a brown here for the undersides, like the palms of the hands, where we can actually see the skin texture of the dinosaur, which is nice again to see that they always go above and beyond to give you a really good, highly detailed paint scheme, and they don't skimp out in any area. As you move back up into the stomach region, you can again see some nice wavy feathering as you move through, and then again we lead up from that off-white to the variation of a lighter brown, and then back to the darker brown. And yet again, just like we saw earlier, you can see how the darker brown and the lighter brown kind of mesh, and you can see the lighter brown creeping through some of the areas of the darker brown. Really like that. And again, we've got another spot of articulation here in the midsection of the Proceratosaurus. As you move back, you've got more of that lighter brown leading down into the thigh, but it quickly disappears and again transitions back to that off-white. You've got more articulation, of course, in the hip, and then again the knee. The knee is super stiff, not moving right now. Again, when you have that issue, it's always good to warm the joint up, so use like a hair dryer or some hot water and just kind of soak it for a little bit, and again, you should be able to start moving that joint a little bit smoother, which is exactly what I'll have to do. But as you move down from the calf region, which you can see a bit of a, muscle definition there in the calf, but as you move down, you can see again we return to a variation of a brown for the foot, and they've done a very good job of adding a nice dark wash to the foot, which helps to really highlight the detail, also give the dinosaur kind of a dirty appearance, which I also like. You can see again, thanks to that dark wash, they've definitely highlighted all of those scoots moving down the front of the foot down into the toes. Again, we've got that nice glossy black for the nails, and you can see the dew claw as well. And then as you lead up into the tail, we again have another area of articulation. Actually, before we go further, you can see we've got one here and one here as well, and again that helps to really give you some nice posability for the leg of your Proceratosaurus. And again, you can also swap those feet out for the other feet we had seen earlier. But as you move up, you've got one more spot here of articulation in the tail where you can kind of move it all over the place and also swivel it a little bit, not all the way. But on top of that, we have a wire tail, so that allows you to bend and articulate the tail any way you would like. And you can see the coloration has had this darker tone running through the majority of the upper side of the dinosaur until we reach the tail, and then it kind of breaks up into almost more of like a large area of spots. And then as we lead out here, you can see again that off-white kind of, in between those darker tones, which the darker tones are again a nice mixture of that darker and lighter variation of brown. And then as you lead out here toward the end of the tail, you've got a nice little display of plumage, and we return back to the darker variations tones of browns pretty much entirely, and again, a similar tone of brown for the underside of the tail to what we had seen on the legs. And then, of course, you move back through, you've got a lot of that really nice off-white here on the underside of the Proceratosaurus. You're really not going to see much difference over on the initial side because, again, the figure is a fully posable figure, so you're really not going to see much of anything different over here, but you can see, again, very nice, very consistent to what we had seen on the initial side. And then, of course, you've got a really cool base. You can see, almost kind of gives me the vibe, the feeling of like being maybe near a stream bed or something along those lines, because you've got those kind of stones that you would see similar to what you would see along the side of a stream. That's just kind of my take on that. But you can also see on top of all the rocks and stuff, you've got some sticks and everything here, a little bit of like a broken tree, as well as some nice vegetation, kind of like some moss or something here. And they've done a very good job not only of sculpting everything out, but of course painting it out. You can see we've got variations of greens when it comes to the vegetation, variation of color when it comes to the rocks. You can see again we've got like a nice dark wash that's been added and everything. And you've also got this spot where you can kind of put the peg in to display your dinosaur. So definitely a really nice base to go with our awesome Proceratosaurus. And then for one more look again at the articulation and how smooth it is, especially in the head and stuff, it looks really, really nice. The arm as well, again, you can get those nice kind of bent positions for the elbows to have the arms held into the body. Again, the legs. I don't know if this knee's going to be... There we go. That knee's working a little bit better than the initial side was. And then, of course, again, the wire tail definitely helps to move the figure around. Let's see if we can get this one to stand, because it's got some little feet here. So there we go. Stands perfectly as I expected. The beasts of the Mesozoic figures, especially these smaller ones, usually stand without issue. For a size lengthwise, you're looking at around 8 inches or about 20.5 centimeters. And then for a height, about a little over 3¼ inches or around 8.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our beasts of the Mesozoic Proceratosaurus. And you can see it's definitely a bit on the smaller side. Again, especially what you would expect when it comes to a species like this. We've also got a comparison here next to a Mattel Velociraptor to again give you an idea of the size. You can see pretty similar, honestly, in size. We've also got a Mattel version of the Proceratosaurus, which yet again you can see very similar in size, though obviously the Beasts of the Mesozoic version is way better than the Mattel version. Definitely better in tail length, that's for sure. And then for a comparison that I think will best put into perspective the size of the Proceratosaurus, we have the Guanlong from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line here as well. And you can see these figures here are pretty darn close to being almost the exact same size. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series Proceratosaurus is definitely another gorgeous release in this line. Love these smaller Tyrannosaur Series figures because the articulation is just so smooth. You can really pull off some nice poses, nice displays with them. And they just generally are really cool species we don't see enough of, so definitely psyched to have a good, very, very good version of a Proceratosaurus now in my collection. Sculpt-wise, it's as awesome as it always is when it comes to a Beast of the Mesozoic figure. You have a very nice look here as far as a fully feathered appearance for this one. You've got feathers all over the place, and they look very good as far as the sculpt goes. Nice kind of wavy feathering as you move through the course of the figure, with a nice display of plumage out there on the tail as well as up there on the top of the head, almost like a little bit of a crest of feathers there as you lead back into the head. You've also got the nice skin textured areas as well, and of course some flashiness there in the face with those yellowish tones. I like how they've really given this one a nice flashy look, but without using colors that you could even remotely look at as being potentially unrealistic. I think all of the tones of color used on this are very realistic, very lifelike. The actual application of the paint is nicely done as well, especially when you look there through the course of the back of the Proceratosaurus with those darker tones and how those lighter browns kind of creep through. I really like that. Definitely adds a nice dose of realism, and also the nice dark wash they've used on the legs really helps to highlight the detail and again give it a realistic appearance overall. And of course on top of that you've got some really nice, really smooth articulation. All of it seems to work really nicely. The knees are a little stiff here and there, but the warm water will take care of that, loosen those up here after I'm done with the review. And You've also got the ability to kind of switch out the feet for different poses, and of course on top of all of that you have a really nice base. The base definitely helps to kind of bring you into the moment, bring you into the scene with the Proceratosaurus. So I'm also a huge fan of a base with any figure, and definitely a fan of it with these Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to exactly where you can do that on the Beasts of the Mesozoic website, which is exactly where I got mine. So make sure you check that link, go grab this awesome Proceratosaurus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.